Welcome to Legal AF with Court Accountability Action. I am so delighted to be here with you today with Evan Vorpahl. He works with me. I've been working with him for almost 10 years now, and he leads our State Court and Democracy Project. And we want to talk with you today about what's happening in Wisconsin. The Wisconsin Supreme Court is up again this year, this spring, and there's a new funder who's come in to try to sway the outcome of that race. And that funder is Elon Musk, the billionaire who is wreaking havoc in Washington with his destructive edicts, along with Donald Trump, firing people, violating all sorts of rules. There's a ton of litigation happening to try to protect people's rights and our agencies and institutions. But in the meantime, Elon Musk is also spending millions suddenly in the Wisconsin Supreme Court race. Evan, can you tell us a little bit more about what you're seeing happening in Wisconsin?
Yeah, thank you, Lisa. And I'd love to speak about that. So, largely, we've seen Elon Musk deploying his fortune through two groups that started spending in the Wisconsin Supreme Court race in February. These two groups are called America PAC, which started spending on canvassing in late February. It's now spent over $4.3 million. And a second group, a 501c4 dark money group that Musk has been linked to and funded, has now spent $4 million. And so I
Wow.
think one thing that's interesting is like I find it interesting that Musk is interested in buying a seat on the Wisconsin Supreme Court. And I think there's a few reasons he's interested in this seat. For one, Musk has a financial stake in this race. Tesla is suing Wisconsin over a decision that blocked it from owning dealerships in the state. In this case, very well could come before the Wisconsin Supreme Court. Because of several years ago, when the state's highest court was dominated by Republican-aligned justices, the majority also adopted a recusal rule that was written by the state business lobby, Wisconsin Manufacturers and Commerce, that does not require recusal from cases brought by people or groups that help a judge win an election in the state. And I think another reason is ideologically. Schimmel has tied himself to the far right in Wisconsin. He said that he was pleased to have the backing of Musk, and he said that he would welcome Donald Trump's endorsement. He told canvassers with the far right Turning Point USA that Trump needs a support network, and he seemingly endorsed some of his lies around the 2020 election.
Wow.
So yeah, Musk has a clear interest in this race, and he's certainly spending a lot of money. This is probably the most money we've ever seen tied to one donor in a state Supreme Court race, on par with Uline, who spent nearly $10 million in 2023 backing Dan Kelly in Wisconsin.
Yeah, can I ask you, Evan, that amount of money, so 10 million we know for sure from Uline back in that 2023 race that Uline lost, in essence, that Dan Kelly lost, but it was probably more than 10 million because cumulatively in that race there was the estimates are more than $50 million was spent. But here now, just in from February to right now, early March, you have Elon Musk through two groups spending 4.3 million and 4 million at least. That's just what we know about. That's just not what is sort of visible. So that's more than 8 million. And we're still 3 weeks out from that election. But just to put that in context, isn't it the case, Evan, that in Wisconsin, as with a lot of other state Supreme Court races, the candidates themselves usually only raise about $1 million for their entire campaign through the primary and the general election. And so this is a case of a billionaire vastly outspending the candidates. And as you point out, one of those candidates, the candidate that he favors, is embracing that outside spending by a billionaire, just like Dan Kelly basically said he wasn't going to raise much money himself because he was counting on these outside forces to spend big in the state. So what does that mean when a candidate, who's running their own ads to try to promote themselves is only spending about $1 million in their entire campaign, and someone like Musk comes into a state like Wisconsin and drops like $4 million, $8 million in a matter of weeks? How
Yeah,
would you describe that?
yeah. I mean, we've certainly seen this playbook multiple years in Wisconsin in these races, and we call it sort of the last minute money bomb. I would like to say this year there's sort of a new dynamic at play where the state party is actually able to get larger donations from some of these same people. For example, the Ulines have given 1.2 million to the Wisconsin Republican Party, which has then been sending millions to Schimmel's campaign. And he actually spoke, Schimmel himself mentioned this at a rally recently where he was telling wealthy donors to max him out with $20,000 contributions. And then he said that they should direct their money to the state party, which will then, fund his campaign. But we see these outside groups just playing a hugely disproportionate role in these races, and they flood the airways with misleading ads, tarring their opponents, and the judges themselves can't counter this with the amount of money they're raising and spending, and so we really see these special interest groups really take a leading role in these elections, just driving up the energy, et
Right.
cetera. Yeah.
Right. I wonder, I read that article by Dan Bice in the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel last week, which was about the Musk spending. And I'm not sure I would say surprised, but I was sort of shocked and horrified, I suppose, to see one of their tactics, which appears to be that they are running ads, that the Musk money is funding ads to basically try to distort the positions of Schimmel's opponent in this race, to try to make her or assert that she has positions that she hasn't even taken. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so there's a group Building America's Future, a 501c4 dark money group with Musk funding, and it's running deceptive ads, seemingly deceptive ads that seem designed to alienate moderate voters away from Susan Crawford. These ads are posing as pro Crawford, but in reality, they're coming from this Musk backed group. The group is using a legal alias called Progress 2028 that appears designed to be trying to present itself as a progressive alternative to the far right Project 2025. These ads have been painting Crawford as supporting seemingly liberal positions, but in reality are not policy positions that she's taken. This group has also launched ads that featured the picture of the wrong Susan Crawford. They
Wow.
put a picture of Harvard professor Susan P. Crawford on some of his ads instead of Susan M. Crawford.
Wow. And
Um,
I read in the report that you're about to publish, Evan, that this group, that's not the only alias, that the group has like what, a dozen aliases, that like different names that it's deploying for different purposes. Is that right?
that's correct. We've counted at least 15 different legal aliases that this group has used, and it's actually used this tactic in the 2024 race as well. It deployed Progress 2028 against Kamala Harris in the 2024 election, using similar tactics designed to drive a wedge between some more liberal voters or between moderate voters and Kamala Harris, highlighting false and misleading claims about her policy positions. Building America's Future has also funded a bunch of other different groups, which have played a different role. There's a group called the Fair Election Fund, which was offering millions of dollars to anyone submitting evidence of voter fraud in the 2024 election. This group was also running ads and billboards in swing states, working to back Jill Stein, RFK Jr., and Cornel West's efforts to stay on the ballots. In Wisconsin specifically, a group called Badger Value Packs was boosting Jill Stein in the swing state, and there's indications that this was also tied to Musk's Building America's Future. So this is a group that's really sort of deployed these seemingly deceptive tactics in order to drive voters away from progressive candidates.
Wow. I mean, it's just astonishing when you think about that amount of money and what it's doing and the sort of distorting role that it's playing. I think on the back of the envelope math, you have, Elon Musk is worth like $340 billion, give or take $1 billion, and spending $8 million is like 0.02 of his money. Like, so if you made $60,000 a year, it'd be like spending at $1,400. It's like, it's such a small amount of money given his vast wealth. And yet these tactics are so destructive. This idea that, it basically distorts the whole idea of having fair elections, because you instead have elections that are backed by a billionaire who doesn't say on the surface of the ad, he's not required to, but it doesn't say this is an ad brought to you by Elon Musk. And instead they're posing as her, which is really astonishing. Now, of course, we don't take positions in Supreme Court races. This is a nonpartisan race. There's not a party assigned to either candidate. But here you have this massive amount of money coming in from billionaires. And, I would think that the American people, the American citizenry, would be concerned about, what Musk is doing. I don't know in Wisconsin, because you mentioned that there's been a change in the rules here. It's not illegal to run an ad pretending that you're the opponent of your opponent, I suppose. And now it's not illegal to do this extensive coordination through the political parties. So it's sort of like the Wild West here in Wisconsin. And the aftermath of that investigation of Scott Walker several years back, that the Wisconsin Supreme Court, then dominated by Republican appointees, shut down that criminal investigation, that bipartisan criminal investigation, which was known as the John Doe 2. And so in some ways, between that Republican intervention in the state to destroy longstanding rules against coordination and the Citizens United decision, which unleashed these billionaires to spend unlimited money in our elections, we're really seeing that in real time here in Wisconsin. And I know you're a native Wisconsinite, Evan. What does the Wisconsin Supreme Court mean to you in terms of justice in Wisconsin? Like, why does the Supreme Court matter?
Yeah, well, in the Wisconsin Supreme Court is critically important, especially this race, where ideological control of the court is on the line. Right now, the court will be hearing a challenge to the 1849 abortion ban, and this affects people's right to reproductive access. In Wisconsin, the Supreme Court in 2023, once it flipped to a more liberal aligned majority, they decided to take up the maps, and Wisconsin state legislative maps are now fair for the first time since 2010, when the Republican State Leadership Committee, through its Red Map project, severely gerrymandered the state's maps. In Wisconsin, these were some of the most grossly distorted, unfair partisan maps in the country, effectively locking in one-party control in the state. In 2018, for example, Democrats in the state legislature gained 54% of the state legislative vote, and Democrats also won every statewide office, yet Republicans had a near supermajority in the Wisconsin Assembly. This is how unfair these maps were.
Yeah, it really is astonishing. I really, between what's happened in Wisconsin and North Carolina, this that 2010 census and then the Red Map project of the Republican State Leadership Committee, as you mentioned, Evan, meant that these Republican legislatures tried to lock in majorities regardless of the proportion of the vote. So in Wisconsin, as you point out, when the map is the map of the state, just the map of the state, for the governor, for the attorney general, a Democrat can win statewide office. But because of how grossly distorted these maps are in the state, at the legislature in Wisconsin, that supermajority in the assembly is completely disconsonant with the actual voting proportions in the state of Wisconsin. And so that really is, it's gerrymandering, but in some ways it's something that's so much worse, so much more evil. It's just really a denial of our representative democracy, of having a truly representative democracy. And unfortunately, this Republican Party in Wisconsin has been at the center of those efforts, fueled by dark money coming in from or in support by big billionaires like Dick Uihlein, who has backed that party and its candidates over and over again, but also who has tried to himself to capture the Wisconsin Supreme Court in order to put forward an agenda to attack reproductive rights of the women in Wisconsin, to attack fair maps, which should just be something that the courts are making sure are fair. Unfortunately, the U.S. Supreme Court with John Roberts has really vacated the field, has allowed this massive gerrymandering, this massive distortion and disruption of our voting rights to take place. And so the state Supreme Courts are really where these battles could be won or lost in terms of having representation in our democracy. So I just want to thank you so much for coming on, Evan, to share with us your new report. We'll put the link along with the video here on YouTube, and please be sure to like us, to follow, to subscribe, and to share this video. And Evan, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, Lisa.
In collaboration with the Midas Touch Network, we just launched the Legal AF YouTube channel. Help us build this pro-democracy channel where I'll be curating the top stories, the intersection of law and politics. Go to YouTube now and free subscribe at Legal AF MTN. That's at Legal AF MTN.